Okay, so in the first of the two round of 16 matches today at the World Cup, Japan were playing Croatia. It really was a very entertaining game. Japan were the better side for lengthy spells in regulation time. It did go to extra time and a penalty shootout. Um, Croatia created a goal out of nothing. The Croatian goal is fantastic. Japan looked a little bit leggy by the end of the 90 minutes. Although they gave it a go in extra time, Croatia were not at their best. There were periods where Croatia were too slow on the ball, very sluggish, misplaced passes, lack of energy, too slow in possession. The Japanese approached the game in the right way, and they were rewarded just before half-time with Maeda's goal. The Croatian defence did not deal very well with the crosses and the passing in and around the box that the Japanese were doing. And considering that the Croatians have a bigger team than the Japanese when it comes to height, I found it very interesting. They were struggling to deal with crosses and lobbed balls into the box, considering the height advantage and the physical advantage they had in that area. But Mayada's goal was a sniper's goal. It's a poacher's goal. He's sniffing around the box for the rebound. The Croatians were struggling to win the first and then the follow-up ball at a lot of 50-50 challenges. And at half-time, I think 1-0 was a deserved scoreline to the Japanese. There's no argument, I think, from anyone with that. They had clearly approached the game in the right way. Whenever they got possession, they were energetic, maybe a little bit too energetic, maybe rushing that final ball, but you could see the intent was there, the energy was there. So at half-time, Croatia obviously have to change something, and it comes from one of their senior players, Ivan Perisic, with a fantastic header. The goal comes from nothing. It's their first decent cross into the box where they've actually won the contest for the ball. Perisic is backpedaling. He's got to direct it with power and pace and accuracy back across the goal, whilst he's slightly off balance. And Ivan Perisic, for a senior player, he's towards the end of his career. He was picked up by Tottenham in the transfer market on a free transfer this summer. And I felt at the time that was a good signing by Spurs, considering some of their missteps in the transfer market in the past. He's still got it for Croatia. He's a key player for Croatia. He's a key leader. Obviously, Modric isn't quite the player he once was, and Modric didn't have his best game today. But Perisic, in big moments, comes up with big goals. He has always done that throughout his career. He's the second highest goal scorer, equal all time with Mandzukic, all time only behind Davor Šuker for Croatia. So that proves how good a player he actually is, considering the company he's keeping there. And Croatia scored a goal out of nothing. But as the game wore on, neither side could really find that second goal. The Japanese, their energy levels dropped. The second half wasn't as good as the first, and the energy levels dropped. It became scrappier, more stop-start, which I think suited the Croatians in not allowing that second goal. Because if the second goal goes in, I don't think the Croatians could conjure something else out of nothing. It was one of those games. So it goes to extra time, and for once in extra time, both sides were attempting to at least try and get something in the 30 minutes, and which was refreshing. Neither side was just sitting there, sitting back. Both sides were with the fact that it's a very hot desert climate and they had to put air conditioning in the stadiums. Both sides were giving it a go in trying conditions with the heat. And unfortunately, neither side can get that second goal to ensure victory. So it goes to a penalty shootout, and this is where it gets a bit bizarre. Now, Livakovic, the Croatian goalkeeper, has pulled off 3 penalty saves under pressure, which is fantastic. Fantastic. The 3 penalties out of the 4 that the Japanese have saved are shocking. Shocking. I don't know what to really say about this penalty shootout, apart from how poor the Japanese penalties were. And questions will be asked about, how bad they were, and obviously there's some cynics out there who go, it's got to be fixed, it's got to be fixed. And we've heard rumours about, in the build-up to this tournament, that, the possibility of match fixing. I'm not that kind of cynic, although I'm not naive enough to think it doesn't happen. But those 3 penalties were very suspiciously poor. And Croatia had a sloppy penalty as well that was a bit bizarre as well. So there were 4 penalties missed, 1 hit the post. Japan have 3 penalties saved, and questions do have to be asked considering how positive Japan have been in this tournament and how they've played and how they've not been afraid to take on the bigger nations like your Germanys and your Spains and have had no fear in that regard. And they pulled off a couple of shocks that weren't expected before the tournament. But the quality of their penalty taking. So yes, Croatia win on a penalty shootout. They do this a lot in tournaments. They did it in the last World Cup. I think they've done it in the Euros as well. Croatia have a habit of taking games to extra time and penalty shootouts. I think that could hinder them in this tournament with the ageing nature of the squad. And they did look a bit leggy in this game. They haven't looked what the Croatia of old throughout the tournament. They've got some veteran players in there. When I say veteran players, players in their late 30s like Modric and Perisic, etc., and Lovren. But that Japanese penalty shootout, so poor. So questions will be asked, and there will be some suspicions raised by some. And I'm not naive to think that there isn't things that do go on, and there have been allegations in the past about World Cups and suspicious outcomes. But Japan was so good in this tournament up to that penalty shootout. So there is that. But yeah, Croatia are through via a penalty shootout. They win 3-1 on penalties. It was 1-1 after extra time, and there we go. So that is the first match in this tournament in the knockout stages to go to extra time. Let's hope it's the last. But so far in the knockout stages, we haven't seen a 0-0 in the knockout stages going into extra time and penalties, which is fantastic. Didn't happen at the last World Cup either. Only 1-0 draw in the last World Cup. We have seen some more goalless draws in this one, higher than in previous tournaments. So I will have a look at goals per game average and see if it's changed from tournament to tournament in the 32 team era, because this is the last 32 team World Cup. But I'm left scratching my head at that Japanese penalty shootout and the penalties that were saved. But Livakovic, he's still got to guess right, even though the penalties are absolutely woeful. And we've seen a lot of penalties saved at this World Cup. So maybe goalkeepers are doing a lot more homework, and goalkeeping coaches are doing a lot more homework on penalty takers. But those Japanese penalties were atrocious. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I will have some more content for you very, very soon.